Welcome to Whova's Event Insider Session Series. Thank you all for tuning in here and joining us today. I do want to start off by introducing myself here with everyone, and my name is Jocelyn. I'll be the host and moderator for today's Event Insider, and I am delighted to see everyone here who has tuned in so far. And just to let you all know, today Event Insider's panel topic is about attract and keep sponsor exhibitors for associations, as you can see here in our event title and event session title as well. Our guest speakers will shortly join us to discuss some of the best tips and practices to keep, grow, retain their sponsors and exhibitors for their association events. But before we start the panel discussion, I do want to share those submitted responses that we received before today's session. And here are some of the questions and there will also be some of the questions we will cover with our guest speakers. So the first poll question that we asked our participants is, how much does sponsor exhibitor revenue contribute to your event budget? And as you can see here, the popular response with 45% of the votes, the sponsor and exhibitor revenue contribute to 20 to and up to 30% of your event budget. Following with that is 25% of sponsor and exhibitor revenue contribute to more than 50% of your event budget, and tying in with 15% of the vote for each response here. Most event organizers in today's session have said that either 20% up to 20% or between 30 to 50% of their event budget is allocated from sponsor and exhibitor revenue. So I want to thank everyone for sharing their thoughts in this poll question. And then the second poll question we asked our participants here is, how do you find more sponsors? And here we have a bar graph of how everyone kind of submitted their responses, and coming in with 81% of the total of the response rates. A lot of event organizers say that through personal relationships and sponsors and exhibitors of related events. So scouting out other sponsors and exhibitors of different events they attend is a way for them to find more sponsorship. Coming in after those is referrals from association members with 67% of response rates. So it definitely looks like your association members are contributing, to getting more sponsorship. And then 52% of their response rates come from referrals from existing sponsors and exhibitors. So you also have your current sponsorship kind of also referring to your event. So that's another option here. Coming in at 38%, also say that social media and online research is another good way for event organizers to find more sponsorship for their events. 24% use local businesses for sponsorship, and 5% say that sponsor directories and platforms is another option that they use to gain more sponsors. So thank you all for sharing your thoughts on this question. And then the final question we asked our participants is, what would you like to get out of today's session? And as you can see here in our screen, we have a couple of those responses shared here. We don't have all of them since they might be a lot, but just to name a few here, some of you submitted the ideas for where and how to attract new sponsors and suggestions for sponsor retention. Any idea on attracting sponsors, especially social media options, since I know that might have been kind of a popular method to get more sponsorship. So that's another good response here. And then how to segment and target to get the best outcome, more information and new information on the subject. So I want to thank all of those participants who share their responses here as well for this question. It's great to see all the feedback, and like I just mentioned, we will cover them. We cover these questions with our guest speakers. And on another note, I do want to take this opportunity to let our audience members know that on August 5th through the 8th, Whova will be attending as an exhibitor the 2023 American Society of Association Executives Annual Meeting and Exposition. And this will be held at the Georgia World Congress Center. So definitely check us out there. If any of our audience members are planning to attend this event, our team would love for you all to stop by the Whova booth. As shown on our screen, our team will have special gifts for Whova customers. So again, if you do plan to attend this meeting/expo, please stop by our Hoover booth and come say hello, as you will be receiving a gift from us if you're a Hoover customer. If you're interested in viewing more content for event organizers, subscribe to our channel where we will continue to upload interviews with top event professionals and new content on the latest event industry trends. It's time to begin the panel discussion and introduce our panelists. The first speaker I want to welcome to the virtual stage is Kristen Hanley. Kristen is the president of KC Conference Solutions. Kristen, welcome, and thank you so much for being our panelist for today. And I'm going to hand the mic to you to kind of also make a little brief introduction and share with the audience.
Hi, my name is Kristen Hanley. I am an independent meeting planner. So my company is called KH Conference Solutions, but I'm based here in the Washington, D.C. area. And I work with a lot of, mostly association clients, but I've had several corporate clients as well. But I do several events a year with sponsors, only one or two each year that has exhibitors, but we have several sessions and attendees, and hopefully I can share that experience with you guys.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that quick introduction, Kristen. And I'm also pleased to welcome our second speaker for today, Judith Joseph. Judith is the Executive Director of the Texas Occupational Therapy Association. Judith, welcome, and thank you so much for being a guest speaker here today. Do you also want to go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience?
Sure. Thank you for inviting me. As you said, I'm with the Texas Occupational Therapy Association, and I'm responsible for planning our major event, which is a huge conference once a year. We have other events throughout the year, but our main fundraiser is our annual conference, and it sort of rotates throughout Texas. And we have been around for more than 50 years.
Awesome. Thank you so much for letting us know. It's great to see an association for being around for so long. So thank you so much for that introduction, Judith. And finally, accompanying her colleague here as well, our next speaker is Cami Luzon. Cami is the vendor service coordinator at Texas Occupational Therapy Association. Cami will also be accompanying Judith to share additional insights regarding today's topics. So Cami, thank you so much for being here. Please feel free to introduce yourself.
Well, like I said, Cami Lesson, and I work with Judy. She's my director. I concentrate on the vendor services area, which where I go out and find the exhibitors for our conferences. So that I do that specific part for conference.
Awesome. Thank you all for sharing a bit more about yourselves. And I'm very much looking forward to hearing from all of you and your thoughts on today's topics. So let's get started with some basic warm-up questions. And the first question I have for you all is, can you share some background about the events you currently host? Christian, I'll start with you first.
I'll focus on one of my clients that I work with a little bit more heavily with their sponsorship and exhibitors, but they do two about 500-person annual meetings a year, and they're pretty close together. They're only about a month apart. And for that event, we do a very small exhibit hall. It's about no more than 25 exhibitors. But they're a pretty unique group in that sponsorship is, you must be a member in order to sponsor for that organization. So it drives a little bit of their membership as well as sponsorship, but they consider sponsorship to be a benefit of membership. And we also only allow, at this point, sponsors to be exhibitors in the hall. So that is one of the things that's a bit unique about that client. But it's an interesting group. They always have a lot of an interest in it. They do a couple of other smaller events that are just sponsorship only. But yeah, it's an interesting group, and they do get a lot of interest. We get a lot of outside interest. Particularly, but we end up turning a lot of people away just because it is a very specific audience, and we want people at that event who are interested and going to be engaged in that particular topic.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing here, Christian. And then Judy or Cami, I'll go ahead and turn to you for this question. Do you want to share some information about the events you host?
I'll start, and then Cami, you chime in. But our event occurs in the fall, and it's usually attended by more than 600 attendees. And we've been sort of monitoring the pre-COVID, we had about 700 or so registered attendees with 150 or so vendors. So each year we have, it's between, it averages a little more than 600, between 600 and 700 registered attendees. And then Cami works on the exhibitor side. And I'll let you talk about how many exhibitors we have, because we're not as big of an association as we appear to be, but when we have a conference, we are one of the biggest occupational therapy conferences in the country. And I think maybe the largest second to us, or might be California. And of course, then the national conference is beyond my comprehension of how they work that. But go ahead, Cami.
Yeah, we usually have, around 60 to 75 exhibitors, depending on our space at that place. But and we usually have a very large exhibit hall, so
Awesome.
to go
Thank
along
you.
with the conference. Mhm.
Yeah, that's really great. Thank you so much, Judy and Cami, for sharing a little bit more about your event, as well as Christian. And now that we do have that background, this next question touches a little bit of how much sponsorship and exhibitor revenue contribute to your event budget. I know this was a question we also asked our participants, but I am curious to know, Cami and Judith, what are your situation for this question?
For us, without those exhibitors, I think our conference would not be nearly as accessible, because we get about 40 to 42%, sometimes even as high as 46% of the revenue comes from those exhibitors and sponsors for our conference. I mean, they pay for, conference bags, and badges and lanyards and all sorts of benefits.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Judy. And then moving on to the next panel topic, the following questions are about winning over new sponsors and exhibitors. So the first question to our panelists that I have, which I know was also a poll question we asked our participants here, is what are some methods and practices to expand your network and become in contact with new sponsors, exhibitors for your association events? So Christian, I'll start with you if you want to go ahead and share your practices.
I would say most of ours is word of mouth. Other sponsors and exhibitors, our members, just offering just our attendance in general. A lot is just every year on our evaluation, we ask, where you heard about the event, and a lot of it is word of mouth from member to member. And I think our sponsors and exhibitors are the same.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Christian. And then I'm going to go back to Judy and Cami. Do you have any other practices that differ from Christian's or align with Christian's?
Yeah, I mean, we do have word of mouth as well, but I think I have like an ongoing email list of prospects and past vendors that we continue to go with and contact every year. We also have an e-blast that goes out to not just members, but non-members. And so that kind of goes out to the community on a monthly or bi-weekly basis. And then we have social media. So we have, several aspects. I'm sorry, my dogs are barking. We have several areas of social media that we will post, about our event coming up.
Awesome. So you use,
Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to respond a little bit back to Cami's response, but Judith, do you want to share any additional practices?
I would say the thing that it sort of makes Cami laugh when I start trying to recruit exhibitors is I'll attend meetings that are similar to ours. So for instance, since we're an occupational therapy association, I attend what's called an Abilities Expo. An Abilities Expo has tons and tons of vendors. And so I'll go to every booth at that Abilities Expo, and it might be 100 of them. And then I get their cards and I talk to them about our conference. And from that, I give them Cami's contact, and then we sort of tag team. And once I give her that contact, she reaches out to them. And then as well as when I attend our national conference, and that's a conference that has about 10,000 people. And I believe they have, I can't remember. I know they have maybe 500. I'm not sure how many vendors they have, but I exhaust myself at that conference and I go to those who I know, or I find out if they will be willing to attend a state conference. Some of them will only attend these big national events, but then I'm able to reach out to some of them. And again, then I give that information to Cami. So I would really tell you, attending other events and working their exhibit hall, if it's a company that is similar to yours or that has similar, I guess, outreach then or mission statements, then that's a really good way to find some new people.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Judy. So
I have
that's a really great-
one
Yeah.
other thing real quick is one thing we do is we have a national association that has, and sometimes I go through their, see their list, and I'll go through there and pick out people from the national conference as well.
Great. Thank you all for that. So, it looks like you and Cami have a great team. Judy and Cami, you both have like a great, team system to kind of have, kind of build and create a bigger network for sponsors and exhibitors. So I want to thank you all for those tips. And then I know Judith kind of talked a little bit about kind of building a relationship with sponsors and exhibitors at other events to then kind of have them come to your event and sponsor your conference. I'm going to move on to this next question, which is what is additional advice to keeping a great relationship with your current sponsors and exhibitors? So Cami, I know since you're the kind of the main point of contact for your association with sponsors and exhibitors, what's your advice on this?
Well, just communication with the exhibitors and have a good relationship with them. I contact them year round, so sometimes we'll have, I'll send them information, halfway through the year. Also, you just lay out the details about what is, what we offer for our booths and what they can expect. And then we respect their time. And so, we appreciate them being there. We embrace them. We don't nickel and dime them to death for, every little piece of their, we give them a package and this is what is included, and they appreciate that.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Judy. Do you have anything else to chime in here for your association and having a good relationship with your sponsors and exhibitors?
I think the other thing, and I think Kristen mentioned it, is we do get referrals from our members and sometimes even our board members because they have relationships, whether it's a wheelchair vendor because someone specializes in that they're an assistive technology professional, or someone specializes in lymphedema. And so they give us the names of their or their customers or their vendors that they work with. And so we're able to reach out to them that way. So sometimes, again, our members and our board members give us some feedback, some hooks.
Yeah, thank you for that, Judy. And then Christian, do you have any other pointers to keep a great relationship with your sponsors?
Yeah, I would just kind of echo a little bit of what Cami said, and communicating with them, being clear and concise about what's being offered. I think that, just making sure that whatever it is that you've built into your package, that you're fulfilling all of those needs, and, just making sure that you are being a partner. Because really, to me, sponsorship and, your exhibitors, I try to treat them as partners. So that's the way to get them to come back each and every year, is to make sure that they're getting out of the conference what they expect.
Awesome. Thank you for that.
And
so it looks
can I say one more thing that I really think is nice thing that Cami and I offer is we treat them as they're part of our team. So when they're setting up, we make sure they have coffee and water. When just before the exhibit hall opens, we make sure they have lunch. And it's an additional expense for us, but without them, it doesn't happen. And so they like that. They like being able to set up. They like that we have a coffee service. Sometimes we have snacks for them, and we do make sure they have a lunch. We offer the lunch outside of the regular lunchtime when the attendees are in there, so that we have a special exhibit time, lunchtime for them. So, and I think that's helpful, and it's just a nice thing to do.
And I would add to that as well. So for the events that I do, typically the exhibitors are registered attendees. So, we treat them as much as just as an attendee as we do sponsors. They get the extra accolades because they are sponsoring. But yes, making sure that, they have the same benefits as every other attendee to the event. So I definitely agree with Judith on that.
Awesome. Thank you all for sharing here a little bit about that. And it looks like the main key components that I took away at least were transparency, clear communication, and, making them feel included like they're part of the team, when hosting this event. So I want to thank everyone for those tips and insights, and I'm sure our audience members are taking notes for this advice. And then finally, to wrap up this panel topic, what are the key components you include in your sponsor proposal, and how do you design your sponsor tiers? So Christian, I'm going to circle back to you for this question.
I think that this is kind of specific to your audience, right? I think that, when you're building out your sponsorship package, you're really wanting to, try to build it out so that they get the value of what they're looking for. Obviously each company might be looking for something a little bit different, but the way that at least one of my clients builds out their packet is, they really want to attend the event. It's not just about, sponsoring or even exhibiting. So we make sure to build in, like a certain amount of complimentary registrations into the package. We have the option to be able to address the audience or have a branded item so that people can pick. So like at our platinum level, you can either pick the opportunity to address the crowd or have a branded item. You can't do both, but you can kind of pick within your package what you want. And for some of our sponsors, speaking is much more important than, like having a branded an item. And I should clarify too, they're not speaking on a panel. It's just the opportunity to get up and say a few words, maybe intro the speakers for a session, something like that. I think a big thing that drives a lot of sponsorship is being able to access the participant list and participant contact information. So we have a lot of rules about how you can reach out to individuals once you receive the list. So because we try to keep our participants from being spammed, because a lot of our sponsors like to have their own events, like they will do after hours parties and things like that. But a big part of it is the access to the participant list, because we only share that with sponsors and exhibitors, or essentially sponsors, because you have to be a sponsor to exhibit. But they also get, branding. We market them, and their logos are in our emails. They're on the website. They're within the app. And we also do only allow sponsors to promote their own event. So you must be a sponsor in order to promote any of, like if you're doing an offsite party or anything like that, you must be a sponsor in order to promote that event to our attendees. So those are the things that are important to our audience. But I would just say, like for each individual organization and corporation, like you're looking at what your sponsors are looking to get out of the event and trying to build your sponsorship package around that.
Great. Thank you for that, Christian. That's really detailed and really useful here. And then Cami or Judith, I'm going to turn to you. And do you include any different key components in your sponsor proposal or sponsorship?
Yeah, we have a lot of the same components that Christian was just talking about. We have several levels of sponsorship, and the higher, they're all of our exhibitors, they're exhibitors, but then they can choose a sponsorship. So if they choose to be a platinum sponsor, then they can choose, like to have their logo on the bags or a lanyard or, something physical like that. And then of course we have signage for everyone. We have, poster signage that we have explaining who our sponsors are and the levels of sponsorship, throughout the conference area. And of course on our social media and our website. And then then we have standard booths that have no sponsorship, and it's just a booth that they understand that they don't, they get different perks as well, but just depending on, but the sponsorships get more perks. So, and we also include the same way some of them also want to attend the conference. So there's depending on the sponsorship, we'll offer attendees an attendee package as well. We also we serve lunch in our exhibit halls, and we offer lunch for the exhibitors. So that's one of their perks.
Awesome.
So we do a lot of the same thing.
Awesome. That's really great to hear, Cami. And then I'm gonna kind of still stay on this question topic. As you know, the past few years, the event industry saw some volatility, either with deciding what type of events to host. A lot of times we were debating if it would be a virtual or hybrid event. And and even in changing of pricings due to the economic situation that we're currently experiencing here in the United States, it did kind of have to make some changes in our event planning. So I want to ask you all, did you have to adjust your sponsorship proposal and tiering over the past few years due to some, outside circumstances? And Judy or Cami, I'm gonna go back to you and ask you if you did have to make any changes.
Well, we did not. I mean, one year we did have a virtual event, 2020, but after that, we've gone back to the in person. And our prices have stayed the same.
Awesome. Great.
And Cami, one thing we do is there is an option now, because we use Hoover, for them to just be a virtual sponsor, that they're not physically there. So that's a lower price. So that's something we didn't have the ability to do that before. And the other nice thing is if they're physically present in the at the conference, they do also have access to the Hoover app. So that's not an additional cost for them. And, going forward, we'll continue to use that because we just don't see going backwards. I think people really enjoy that opportunity to have that virtual experience. And, there's a lot of interaction. The attendees really get into that, especially when there's this little competition. But we don't charge them extra to be included in the Hoover app.
Great, thank you so much for that insight too, Judy. And then Christian, I'm gonna also ask you, and did you have to make any changes to your sponsorship proposals or tierings throughout the years?
We did make some changes to the benefits, but overall we didn't change. I don't believe we changed the pricing. But what we did was so when we were in the virtual environment and we were not doing in-person events for, that short period of time, we increased the number of complimentary registrations because it was, it's just easier to accommodate people in a virtual environment when, you don't have to worry about the physical number of seats, right? But a lot of our other benefits remain the same. We had to get a little creative with some of the branded opportunities. We did try to do, some mailing of the branded items and things like that. We started doing that, kind of cut that later, but I would say that we didn't really significantly change any of our packages. It was just sort of tweaking it slightly to, provide some more benefits that were specific to the virtual environment. And then when we came back to in person, we basically went back to our old model, but just sort of reducing some items. So for instance, pre-pandemic, we did at one point sell some non-member exhibitor slots, but only if we had availability after a certain point. So basically we did pre-sale for members, and then we would open it up to non-members if there was any space available. When we came back post-pandemic, we cut that. It was still, we didn't sell any non-member spaces. And I'll be curious to see if they go back to doing something like that in the future. But right now they've basically drilled it down to, members only. And we did open up to a little bit of non-member sponsorship. It was just at a higher price during the pandemic. But I'll be honest, I don't really see that we got that much traction with, additional non-members. We did get a few, but I don't think it was significant enough for them to consider to, continue to do that in the future. But those were just some minor tweaks that we made to just the existing packages.
Great, thank you for that, for sharing, Christian. It looks like you kind of, started experimenting a lot due to the different type of situation we were living in at that time. So thank you for sharing. And then I'm going to move on here. I know we covered some great ground on attracting more event sponsorship, and I do want to shift gears and explore other aspects. So, which is how to promote these sponsors and exhibitors and, help boost their return on investment. So I'm going to go ahead and start with sponsors first. Sponsors look for brand exposure at the event, which is something you've kind of all mentioned here in our panel discussion. And I know Hoover provides some built-in tools for organizers to show sponsor logos within the event app, as well through event web pages, which has, those fun sponsor rotating banners. So I want to start off with Judy and Cami, if you did have any experiences with these built-in tools.
Yes, we have used the sponsorship in the past, and basically we would just put our higher tiered exhibitors, we would list them on that and have have their logos rotating. And also there's the ability to have sponsors actually sponsor certain events or what am I trying to say? Sessions. And because you can put there, and so when people look at the session, they'll see sponsored by and they'll see the logo, and we allow them to pick based on what sessions would kind of apply to that sponsorship. So that was also nice for the exhibitors to have that.
Great, thanks, Cami. And then what about you, Christian? Did you have any experience with that Whova built-in feature?
Yeah, so we use it in a slightly different way. It's similar, but it's slightly different. So we sell the mobile app as a sponsorship by itself. But it's very simple to be able to control that. Whova does have you can check a box and say it will only appear on, like this portion of the app or, things like that. So we don't use the banners as much as we just say, it will always say at the bottom, like sponsored by this one sponsor. So their logo kind of stays throughout the app. And then we do sell the individual, mostly just like keynotes and general sessions and things like that, or lunch. But we also sell the individual sponsorships, but that only appears on that individual session or page. But I would just say for, people who don't use Whova, one of the great time-saving benefits that we found from it is just being able to have like the snap-in for the website, to where you're just posting your agenda. The same thing that's in the app is on the website, and you're just updating everything in one place. I know that was very time-saving for us once we, started using Whova a couple of years ago. But it's just simplified sort of like the website branding, at least portion of it, just being able to have this sort of like one-stop shop. You update it in one place and it updates it everywhere. So that's been very helpful for us.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much for that, Christian. I know a lot of our customers have mentioned that, the seamlessness of updating it all in one place, and your agenda is updated. And if you're using the Whova web pages, then it's also kind of mirrored there without really having to do much than one edit. So thank you so much for that, Christian. And then while making sponsors visible in places like a web page or on the event or an event app, do you have any other creative methods to increase brand visibility for your sponsors? And Christian, I'm gonna come back to you for this question.
We do something very similar to what Cami mentioned. So it's not within the app. We are doing a lot of like branding on site, a lot of PowerPoint, like our sponsors are always rotating on our PowerPoint slides, whether, there's breaks between sessions, things like that. We do our physical signage, so like if it's a session sponsor, then their logo is on that sign outside of that session. And we do just, like the general signage for having, platinum, silver, bronze, like whatever you call it at your individual organization. But we usually have, signage for that. But a lot of it, is once you get in person and you're, like you're seeing that physical signage on site. When it comes to marketing, it's the same as probably everyone. We do some in the emails, we do some social media, and, obviously it's all over the web pages and in the app.
Great, thanks for that. And then Judy or Cami, do you have any other creative ways to increase brand visibility for your sponsors?
Well, we talked earlier about the e-blast. We'll highlight sponsors, some of the high-tiered sponsors, in one of our e-blasts, and before conference, we'll send those out, and on social media. And another thing, talking about how things just merge. There's a way on Whova when you enter your exhibitors, and you click a certain link, that you can put that link on your website. And as you add your exhibitor, it adds it to your website without actually having to do that. And it's kind of nice to have like current exhibitors on your website, because then people can look on there and say, oh, look, so-and-so is going to be exhibiting, we better be there. So that's a nice little perk to have.
Great, thank you for that. That's really insightful here, Cami. Kind of showing off the type of exhibitors that are going to be at your event
Mhm.
also might entice, others to start to be like, hey, I also want to be part of this. I also maybe even just
Mhm.
as an attendee, want to sign up and be part of that
Right.
event. So thank you so much for that. And then I'm going to move on. I know you just mentioned about exhibitors, but I'm going to have this question also geared about them. So exhibitors seek high booth traffic and lead generation. So I know Huba also has other built-in solutions like digital exhibitor booths, QR code lead retrieval, passport contests, and many others to help events achieve that. So how effective do you think these items or tools such as the digital tools help exhibitors? So Cami or Judy or whoever implemented these from Huba, what do you think about
Mhm.
them?
I think our exhibitors absolutely love the lead retrieval. I mean, that's an easy way to, they just scan badges and their information goes right there. They really, and when people go to their Huva site, that information's captured. We also participate in the passport contest, and we let our exhibitors option whether they want to participate or not. Some don't want to do that, but the passport contest basically attendees get when they go to a certain booth and they get their badge scanned, then you can determine how many badges or booths they need to go to in order to be available for be able to be part of the prize at the end. And we actually get our exhibitors to donate prizes. They'll donate gift cards and things, and so that really leads to a lot of traffic in the booths, so they appreciate that.
Great, thank you for that, Cami. And then Christian, do you have any thoughts for this question?
Sure. We do use the passport contest. We don't use the QR code. Both of my clients actually use different vendors to print their badges. They don't print their badges from Huva. So that is a little bit more difficult for them to use Huva to do their lead retrieval. But we have used the passport contest just to try to drive attendance to the exhibit hall. I do feel like we have to sort of incentivize it. So we typically have some sort of prize or gift card or something like that, where so basically we say if you go and visit all the exhibitors, you'll enter to win this, and we'll usually do a drawing the following morning. And usually, we just try to pick some high ticket item that will incentivize, people to participate. But that's how we use the passport contest.
And can I just put a plug in for Huva's name badge feature? It's excellent. I really like it because you can create that QR code. It just makes it so much easier. When I made badges for exhibitors and for attendees and keynotes, it just was really seamless, and it really was helpful with just being able to have that QR code, and the badges look nice. We get them all sent off to a printer, and it just works well. Just a little plug for that.
Yeah, no, thank you for that, Judy. It's really great to hear. I know, it could be helpful, but again, it also comes to who would like to use it, or, sometimes old habits die hard, and sometimes it's harder to transition from one place to another. So I definitely understand both perspectives, but I thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that.
I don't know, maybe you can educate us on, how, if there's an option for Huva to do like the actual, badge on site printing software, but that's why a lot of my clients don't use it. They have, 1,000-person conferences, and they're hiring a company to do the badges, like you check in, your badge is printed on site.
On site.
But, there are a lot, I do have other clients that they self-print their badges and things like that. So it's a nice feature to have, but I think that, it really is kind of like, it depends on how you do your registration.
Yeah, and just to let you know, and our audience members, if anyone is interested on that, we are working on getting, that on-site printing. So that is coming down in the future. So, maybe that's something anyone who would like to explore or is wanting that from the Huva platform is going to be available in the near future. So just keep an eye out for that. It might be in 2 to 3 months. So, we'll let you all know when we'll have on-site name badge printing soon. But thank you both for, kind of letting us know a little bit about the the current, built-in solutions that Huva has for exhibitors. But kind of to still follow up and kind of stay on topic for this, I do also want to ask you all if you do have other methods you implement to help exhibitors, get more traffic and leads. So Cami, I'll start with you first.
Yeah, we actually have specific unopposed times. So that drives traffic into the exhibit hall, and we serve lunch in the exhibit hall. So that brings everyone there. And so we do have that. And then we also have the app stays live through the end of the year, so they can get traffic even after the conference is over.
Yeah, thanks for that, Cami. And then Christian, do you have any other methods to implement to kind of get more people with exhibitors?
I say food and drink is always a big motivator to get people into the exhibit hall. So where possible, we try to, there's actually a point during our conference where you can only get, a soft drink or, a snack or something like that in the exhibit hall. But that's probably our biggest motivator to get people in there. And we always do a reception in the exhibit hall one evening. So those are our kind of like big pushes.
Great. Yeah, it looks, that's kind of been a very popular response. Food is the biggest motivator to get attendees to kind of interact with exhibitors or other sponsors. So
we also have our poster presentations are located in the exhibit hall. And then we have what's called student organization tables are also in the exhibit hall. So that also makes that constant flow of people going in and out of the exhibit hall.
Great, thank you for that, Judy. That's also another great tip here is, kind of having other content that people might be interested close to exhibitors might be another way to kind of have a constant traffic flow there. So thank you for that. And then I know we covered I had a very insightful discussion here on these topics, but I do want to move on to this next and final topic about the logistics and other components in having sponsors and exhibitors in our events. So while most events are now in person, Huva customers use digital booths and virtual lead retrieval to offer virtual exhibitor slots, even in an in-person event, just to generate some more income. So what are your thoughts on this approach? And Christian, I'll kind of come back to you for this.
For us, a lot of our events, most all of my events are back in person, and most of our sponsors or exhibitors are getting most of their value in that in-person one-on-one interaction. We do still offer like virtual exhibitor booths, but it's more sort of like a benefit of sponsorship. And we offer them the ability to go in and upload their videos and add, PDFs and personalize it as much as they want. Some of them do, some of them don't. But for our exhibitors at this point, I feel like it's kind of like a bonus versus something that they're really, generating income, or that we're generating extra income from, or that they are, getting, some specific benefit from.
So thanks. Yep, totally get that. So thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on this. And then Judy or Cami, do you have any different thoughts or for this approach in kind of selling virtual exhibitor slots for an in-person event?
Yeah, well, since it is available, we do offer it. And, we have a few people that have done it. I don't think they get as much, out of it since we are having the in-person event. But we do offer it, and, they do get their name out there. And like Kristen said, they can put their videos, and they can have, one-on-one chats with people if they can, if they can facilitate that.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I also appreciate your thoughts on this question as well. And now moving forward, handling exhibitor and sponsor payments can be challenging, particularly if there's not like a uniform process for it. And I know Huva offers exhibitor registration as a way to kind of help organizers overcome these challenges. I know others can use different systems, and I know we're on the works to provide a sponsor registration as well. So we'll have 3 types of registration systems in the future. So I want to come back to Judy and Cami and ask what are the ways you handle the large payments from sponsors and exhibitors, and kind of what's your strategy for this?
We have an association management system. So everything that we have and do, all of our payments pretty much go through our association management payment system. So we don't do anything different just because it's people register and then they can pay. And we pretty much use that for most of all of our payments.
Got it.
Every now and then someone wants to send a check, but but for the
So-
most part, they pay through our system.
Awesome. So all of it goes through that system, and no like kind of old school like checks. Every now and then you'll get a few of those, but
Yes, usually it might be from a nonprofit or a school district that's having a booth, but for the most part, people will pay through our system.
great. Thank you for that. And Christian, what is your system to cover all these payments? Do you have a different one?
So same, most of my clients have their own association management software. They're processing their own payments. One of my clients actually has a unique program. They have an annual sponsorship program. So you pay a one-time fee for the year. So that means that we're processing, one large payment that might cover 4 events. So we wouldn't be taking those payments individually for individual events. So we just process that, and they're almost, sort of comped, as you could say, for those individual events when we actually enter them into our system. So yeah, all of my clients are using their own AMS for that.
Okay, great. Thanks for that, Christian. And then, moving on here to this next question, how do you promote and facilitate member interaction and engagement with your sponsors and exhibitors? I know we kind of mentioned, having food at that exhibit hall helps, get people there and, start talking to exhibitors, but do you have other ways to help facilitate that member interaction with your sponsors? So Christian, I'm going to go back to you.
So I will say that my sponsors and exhibitors are actually really good at driving attendance to their own booths. Some of them, come up with these unique concepts every year, and they just have very, very fun things that, attract people themselves. So beyond just, us getting them into the room with food and drink, they will play games, they will have their own giveaways and, their own swag and things that they're providing. Some of it is very, very nice. I had one exhibitor who was giving away those personalized blend jets, so I think people tend to, flock to booths where they see something that is as unique and of interest to them.
Yeah, thank you. I know one time when I was in at event, they had like their own little booth, like picture booth. So we all like kind of just went and, started taking pictures and kind of, have your own little like strip of pictures and stuff. And, that's a way to kind of get people flocking there when they see something big and shiny and kind of, out there. It gets people to join those booths. So thank you for that, Christian. And then Judy or Cami, do you have any other ways to facilitate member interaction?
I know we don't do this at our conference any longer, but I have attended another conference, and what they will have in their vendor booths or their exhibit booths is they offer a continuing ed session. And so you attend that event and you get continuing education credit for attending that vendor sponsored. And usually it might be more a product promotion, but we do that on a very limited basis. And only because of Texas licensure regulations, we don't always get approval for our license if it's a product promotion. But in some other spaces and places, it's a great idea to go and attend that booth because you're learning more about a specific product because they're doing an educational event, whether it's 20 or 30 minutes. And it's very beneficial. I've done that at another specialized conference that I attend.
Yeah, and I'll piggyback on that. I was just on a forum recently, and there were some very good ideas about, leveraging your speakers, having your speakers, if anybody's doing like a book signing, or if there's a particularly good keynote, having them maybe have some time to do like a meet and greet, having networking areas within the space, doing a charging station within this space, things that are just going to attract people naturally to this space to spend time, and, they will naturally start to filter out and, see other people and and just walk around and network with other people. But yeah, a lot of it depends on how much space you have to work with and things like that. But that engagement piece, just like one-on-one interaction, if you can find some way to put something in that room that they can only find in that room, then you're going to drive engagement and participation.
Kristen, I really like that. I mean, we've done that. And one of the things I asked one of our bigger sponsors and vendors that come to our conference every year, I asked the vice president, I said, what is it that you want when you come to conference? What do you want? And what do you want from us? And she goes, well, no one's ever asked me that. But one of the things that she mentioned was we really want to get our brand out there and our name out there. And I encouraged that company. I said, then have your employees present at our conference to be a speaker and then have them at your booth, like Christian said. I said, because people who have questions or they did a great presentation, then they will come to the booth because you now have the speaker at your booth. So I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, thank you for that, for those tips here. So I really appreciate them. And then kind of moving along here as we're kind of getting close to closing our panel discussion. This next question is not so much about logistics, but more about additional guidance that maybe our panelists can provide regarding sponsorships. So I want to ask all our guest speakers here what are common mistakes or pitfalls some first-time organizers should avoid when seeking sponsors? So anyone want to start with this question?
I mean, I'll start. So one of the things that I spend a lot of time talking to prospective sponsors, and sometimes I actually don't recommend that they sponsor. I just recommend that they attend, especially if it's their first time coming to the event. They've never really participated in the event. I want them to come and experience it and see, what it is that they're sort of getting themselves into, because some of these events are very unique. And, they're not the event where you're coming and bringing your biggest booth and, like you're spending hours and hours at your booth. It's more geared around networking and, getting to know folks. And sometimes sponsors actually get more out of sitting in sessions than they do necessarily just, standing around in the exhibit hall all day. So a lot of the times when I'm talking to somebody especially somebody who's never been to the event before, I just recommend that they attend maybe one of two of their team members and just come and experience it, see if it's the event for you, and then you can come back and sponsor next year or exhibit next year. But just kind of get a sense for it. And I feel like a lot of our customers appreciate that because they don't realize that they're not going to get out of it what they expect, if they're coming in with their own idea of what they've maybe seen at another event, or because every audience is different.
Yep. Thank you for that. Judy and Cami, do you have any additional thoughts to help?
Yeah, I think to piggyback on that, I would also say you really need to be specific in what you're offering, because sometimes they come in and they think, oh, well, this also includes attendee. I could be an attendee at the conference. I was like, no, it doesn't. So you need to really be specific about what your booth entails and what perks you have for it.
Yeah, and I will say, even when you are specific, sometimes they still get confused.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I hate to say this, but a lot of people are busy and they just don't have time to fine print. So, but I 100% agree. You do have to be specific about what it includes, what they can and can't participate in, based on what it is that they've purchased. But that's where misunderstandings happen. And that's where people, like when they leave with a bad taste in their mouth because they didn't feel like they got what they came for. But yeah. I think Cami started off the conversation with this, but just like clear communication is very key.
Awesome. Thank you.
I would also quickly say, just, as an organizer, and if you're using Hoover, just make sure you as an organizer is fully aware of all of the features, because, how many documents can you upload and just what features that are available to you. Because I think when we first used it, we might have missed out on some opportunities because we weren't aware of all of the features that were available to us. So as an organizer, make sure you know what's available.
Yeah. And That's an excellent point too, when it comes to also branded items, making sure that you are researching and figuring out what you're going to purchase before you price something. And so that you know that, your sponsorship is actually going to either cover the cost or give you that profit that you're looking for. Because I do see some folks, they're like, oh, we want to do a notebook. But then they don't realize that there are a million notebooks out there. Not all of them are nice. Not all of them are worthy of a sponsor logo. And just making sure that you do your research and know that, like what you're going to spend on something.
Great. Thank you all for sharing that, those words of wisdom for probably first time organizers or, kind of tackling sponsorship for the first time. So I definitely appreciate all that advice. And that kind of concludes our panel discussion with our speakers here. And I'm going to turn over to the live Q&A portion. I know we had some questions come in throughout our discussion. So I'm just going to go ahead and get right into them here and start with the most popular question. And I'm going to kind of gear this one towards Christian. Or if anyone wants to add another additional information. This one is from Becky, and she asked, how far ahead of your events do you recruit your sponsors? So want to take, a hit for this one, Kristen?
No more than 6 months, actually. So for our largest events, I would say my first large annual meeting of the year, it starts in January. And it's actually at the end of January or first week of February. And we generally don't start marketing for that event or outreaching for sponsorship until probably September, sometimes not until October. So I think it really depends on your conference and what it is that you like your particular event. I've been doing this event for years and it has a built-in audience. So it doesn't require, like a year's worth of sales. But if it's the first time you're doing the event, or like if you've only done it once or twice, maybe you start a little bit farther out and you like build up that time. But I personally don't start, I don't like to start advertising anything until I have a complete agenda. And sometimes my clients don't have agendas until, probably like four-ish, 5-ish months out, because that way I can sell, everything. I'm not adding in anything later. We're selling the sessions and the branded items and everything all at once.
Great. Thank you for that here. And I'm going to move on to this next question. This one's from Madeline.
Jocelyn, can you let Cammie answer that question? Because she does something a little unique in that when you're reaching out as early as you do.
Yeah, for sure. Cammie, do you want to share your thoughts here?
I don't know what Judy's talking about.
So you went during our conference, you actually sell booths for the next year.
That's true. I do have an early bird form that every booth attendee gets. And by if they fill that early bird form out and get it to me, then they lock in the price for the following year. So a lot of, I get a lot of the same vendors come every year, exhibitors, and they always lock in that price. And, in case we go up the next year. And then usually about in February, our events in November, end of February is when we send out the prospectus, and we kind of start at that point. So it's about 8 months.
Great. Thanks for that, Cammie. And Judy, thank you so much for chiming in here and letting us know that little nice trick that you all use to scope out sponsorship early on. And then I'm going to move on to this next question here. I'm going to probably just cover this one and another one to kind of close our panel discussion. And this one's for Madeline, and she asked, with social media and email in mind for marketing an event, how much communication is enough? And Cammie, I'm going to probably turn this question to you, since probably you mentioned using these type of formats with communicating with sponsors. So,
well, I mean, prior to our conference, like a few months out, we start really advertising, more and more, because and so we highlight our exhibitors, and we want to give them some love. So, we usually will send something out on social media and our email blast that we have.
How much frequency is there?
Frequency? Well, we do the email blast like once a week. And I think what we've done in the past is each week we would highlight one of our top exhibitors, one of our top sponsors, and, give them, a little bit more information about the company. And then, the next week we would highlight another one. So we probably do it about 7 weeks out.
Okay.
Start
Awesome.
doing that.
Great, thanks for that, Cami. And then this next question is from Sherry, and she asked, what are the rules around providing sponsors with your attendee contact info? I believe both of you kind of use this, right, to kind of give to your sponsors. Does anyone want to take a jab at this question?
Well,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
no,
Katie.
go ahead. You go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, we actually have a specific written policy about it. It's a solid paragraph. But, part of it is, just the rules of you're not supposed to share it outside of your own organization. But we try to get folks to drill down the list to their current clients and, like a small amount of prospective clients to, market to. Now, the way that we control this is via the complaint process. So basically we tell folks that if we get a complaint from, somebody within the organization, we'll address it with you. If it happens again, then we could technically pull your sponsorship. But, we've never had to do that. We've definitely had to do a little bit of outreach to talk to people about, hey, we got a complaint about, a kind of excessive outreach sort of thing. But usually once they've gotten that message, they stop. But that's kind of like roughly what the policy is.
Thank you so much for sharing, Kristen. And then Cami, do you have any other thoughts on that?
Well, I was just going to say that we don't really give out a list, that through the lead retrieval, they have their contact information from lead retrieval. So,
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
So you use the one on the Hookup platform.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. So with that being said, I know we're a little past the hour mark here. So I want to close off our live Q&A segment. I do apologize for our participants who have some questions there that we didn't really get to cover, but I don't want to take anyone's time as we probably also have a busy schedule. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up today's Event Insider session. So Cami, Judy, and Christian, thank you so much for being our guest panelists here and for joining us today. I really appreciate all of you for sharing your insight with us. I know I got some great takeaways from your advice and your tips, and I'm sure our audience members did as well. So thank you for that. And to those of you in the audience, I also want to thank you all for joining, participating, and asking those great questions. It was a pleasure hosting this session, and I hope everyone enjoyed it as much as I have.